Most human behavior is learned observationally through modeling. From observing others, one forms an idea of how new behaviors are performed, and on later occasions, this coded information serves as a guide for action. Albert Bandura. In his 1977 book, Social Learning Theory, Albert Bandura makes two additions to the already popular at the time behaviorist learning theories of classical conditioning and operant conditioning. Bandura added two important ideas. One, mediating processes occur between stimuli and responses. Two, behavior is learned from the environment through the process of observational learning. These additions would be the basis for the idea of a personal or character role model. In social learning theory, Bandura cited three major examples. One, a live model, which involves an actual individual demonstrating or acting out a behavior. Two, a verbal instructional model, which involves descriptions and explanations of a behavior.
Turn to page 394.
3. A symbolic model, which involves real or fictional characters displaying behaviors in books, films, television programs, or online media. This was an idea that was going to grow exponentially in importance and understanding, leading Disney to announce that the new Star Wars trilogy was going to have a female protagonist who would be a symbol to women everywhere. Now, you might be asking yourself, how is this relevant to Harry Potter? When it comes to the changes from the Harry Potter books to films, people often focus on what happened to Ron. They don't always give as much focus and context to the changes to Harry and Hermione, except in reference to Ron. This is a shame, because not only are those characters just as important, the independent changes affect their dynamic just as much as the relationship changes. My thesis question for this piece is going to focus on Hermione. How did Hermione change? Why did she change? What does that tell us about what we expect from different forms of media and how we consume them?
Hagrid's looking...
Well, you can tell Ronald...
I'm not an owl!
Part 1. Hermione. In the books, Hermione isn't perfect. She's an outcast from the outcasts.
It's Leviosa, not Leviosa. She's a nightmare, honestly. No wonder she hasn't got any friends. I think she heard you.
Her intelligence and love of learning separates her from others. Learning is something she dedicates a majority of her energy to. To borrow a quote from one of my sources,
Hermione is not an effortless genius. She's a genius through effort.
her passion for school comes at an expense, like to her social skills, for example. In Chapter 8 of Prisoner of Azkaban, Ron and Hermione are fighting over the fact that Crookshanks wants to kill Scabbers. "You keep that cat away from him." "Crookshanks doesn't understand it's wrong," said Hermione, her voice shaking. "All cats chase rats, Ron." "There's something funny about that animal," said Ron, who was trying to persuade a frantically wiggling Scabbers back into his pocket. "It heard me say that Scabbers was in my bag." "Oh, what rubbish," said Hermione impatiently. "Crookshanks could smell him, Ron. How else do you think?" "That cat's got it in for Scabbers," said Ron. All Ron wants from Hermione is for her to admit that her cat wants to kill Scabbers, which Hermione stubbornly can't give him. In the film adaptation of this fight, which lasts through the whole book, it's played down a lot.
Unless, of course, you've been ripped to pieces.
Ripped to pieces? What are you talking about?
Ronald has lost his rat.
I haven't lost anything. Your cat killed him.
Rubbish.
Harry,
Well, maybe you should learn to take better care of your pets.
your cat killed him.
Did not.
This fight is a side plot in the book, but important when it comes to the dynamic of Hermione and Ron's friendship. The films remove a time when Hermione is wrong and accidentally make Ron look like a jerk who's mad because of a problem Hermione can't control. The adaptation shifts the blame of the fight to Ron. I don't think this was intended. I think this is a case of missing the forest for the trees. The change was most likely a byproduct of streamlining the story for the screen, a process any adaptation must go through. With the context of all 8 films, though, it affects the characterization of the trio. In the first book, practicality and the ability to think quickly in high-tension situations is a skill that Hermione is not good at. She's a very logical person. In Chapter 16 of Philosopher's Stone, the first challenge the group has to deal with, the Devil's Snare, uses the expertise of all. They're a team. Devil's Snare, Devil's Snare. What did Professor Sprout say? It likes the dark and the damp. Oh, so light a fire, Harry choked. Yes, of course, but there's no wood, Hermione cried, wringing her hands. Have you gone mad? Ron bellowed. Are you a witch or not? All the lines are in character. You know what's not in character?
He's not relaxing, is he?
Apparently not.
I've got to do something.
What?
I remember reading something in herbology. Devil snare. It's deadly fun, but will sulk in the sun. That's it. Devil snare hates sunlight. Luma Solem.
Ron, you okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Whew. Lucky we didn't panic.
Lucky Hermione pays attention in herbology.
Thanks, I hate it.
Ron, of course, thinks to use magic because he's grown up with it as the normal answer to problems. Hermione, in the films, has her flaws reduced to the point where she's not the Hermione we loved in the books. This new, perfect Hermione isn't as relatable. Book Hermione isn't perfect. She's an outcast of the outcasts. People make fun of her for her intelligence. This was one of the things about her that I've related to most. She's not strong at social interaction. Hermione is not always the easiest to get along with in the books. She's insecure and kind of rigid. She knows she can be a buzzkill sometimes, and that bothers her.
What's the matter, Potter? Bit beyond your reach. Harry, no way. You heard what Madam Hoop said. Besides, you don't even know how to fly. What an idiot.
She can't have the same energetic friendship that Ron and Harry have.
Wingardium Leviosa.
Look, stop. You're going to take someone's eye out. Besides, you're saying it wrong. It's Leviosa, not Leviosa.
You do it then if you're so clever.
Go on. Wingardium Leviosa.
See here, everyone. Miss Granger's done it. Splendid.
Wingardium Leviosa.
Well done, dear.
I think we're going to need another feather over here, Professor.
In the books, Hermione comes off as the second favorite friend. Harry can be super mean and judgmental about her in his inner monologues. Harry doesn't not love her, and as they get older, their own special bonds get stronger. When it comes to actually hanging out, however, Harry favors Ron, who's more on his mental level.
Queen to e5.
That's totally barbaric.
That's wizard's chess.
This is illustrated in Chapter 19 of Goblet of Fire, when Harry and Ron aren't speaking. You miss him, Hermione said impatiently, and I know he misses you. Miss him, said Harry. I don't miss him. But this was a downright lie. Harry liked Hermione very much, but she just wasn't the same as Ron. There was much less laughter and a lot more hanging around the library when Hermione was your best friend. In the movies, without Harry's judgmental thoughts about everyone, Harry seems more like Hermione's best friend. not Ron's. These changes to her characterization affect all her friendships and the entire dynamic of the trio.
I never realised how beautiful this place was.
Chapter 2, Ron. The one relationship that got hit the hardest by these changes was Hermione and Ron's. An argument that's used a lot is that Ron was made a goof, so Hermione could be a good role model for little girls. To a degree, this is true. It was definitely a goal to make Hermione a role model. It wasn't by design to water down Ron as much as they did. The way their relationship changes and what it says about their characterization. In the films, Ron plays as more angry, jealous, dumb, and petty. Ron and Hermione bicker a lot in the books, but you never get the feeling that Ron dislikes, disrespects, or is mad at Hermione. In the films, there isn't as much time for them to do this, so when it does happen, Ron just comes off as a jerk. In Chapter 9 of Prisoner of Azkaban, Snape snubs Hermione, and Ron reacts like this.
That is the second time you have spoken out of turn, Miss Granger. Are you incapable of restraining yourself, or do you take pride in being an insufferable know-it-all?
He's got a point, you know.
That was the second time you have spoken out of turn, Miss Granger, said Snape coolly. 5 more points from Gryffindor for being an insufferable know-it-all. Hermione went very red, put down her hand, and stared at the floor with her eyes full of tears. It was a mark of how much the class loathed Snape that they were all glaring at him, because every one of them had called Hermione a know-it-all at least once, and Ron, who told Hermione she was a know-it-all at least twice a week, said loudly, "You asked us a question and she knows the answer. Why ask if you don't want to be told?" Ron will snip at her and they'll debate, but Book Ron is always there for her if things go too far. Movie Ron uses his time like this. He's just kind of a jerk. There's less time for them to bicker in the films because it's not an important plot. It is a building block of the plot, however. When they fight for fun in the books, you never question if Ron respects her. Ron and Hermione clearly do it for fun. Book Ron is constantly on her side, but the films don't feel like that. Look at this clip from The Order of the Phoenix.
Don't worry. I'll go easy on you.
Thanks, Ronald.
Come on, Ron. Come on, Ron. Come on, Ron.
One second. You're on.
Thank you. Shut up. I let her do that. It's good manners, isn't it? It's completely intentional.
Thanks, I hate it.
Book Ron is 100% aware that Hermione is the best at magic out of everyone by the end of Book 1. So the fact that Film Ron says,
Hey, I'll go easy on you.
is totally out of character. Here's how this scene goes in the book. "Did you see me disarm Hermione, Harry?" "Only once," said Hermione, stung. "I got you loads more than you got me." "I did not get you once. I got you at least 3 times. "Well, if you're counting the one where you tripped over your own feet and knocked the wand out of my hand." They argued all the way back to the common room. It's completely different. The adaptation plays completely differently than the book. It plays on the sexist line. Ron acts to impress his guy friends, and that he's of course superior to her, when Ron knows he's not in that way. Hermione then giggles with all the girls because she embarrassed Ron. That's not in character either. Not only is she not the type of person to do that, she's not really friends with those girls in the books. The idea of how they adapted this scene seems to be to create cute flirting between the two, forecasting their future relationship. They really missed the mark. Saying they missed the mark is a statement that as a whole applies to the romantic writing in these movies. The books don't have a very strong romantic subplot on their own. So the team behind the Harry Potter movies went in with the plan of making it better. How'd they do?
Has Ron gone to bed?
Not yet. No.
Shoelace. Merry Christmas, Harry.
Oops, it's worse.
The dish ragification down of Harry and Ginny's characters that lead to this is so bad it deserves a video of its own. I'm going to focus on the relationship of Hermione and Ron, which was marginally better. It would probably have been fine if their characterization hadn't changed so much. Because of how Ron and Hermione play in the films, it feels like Ron is a dumb and flawed boy who this new perfect Hermione has to fix, or wait around for him to grow up. They don't have a journey to love together. Hermione, and the audience to a degree, is already there and just waiting for Ron to catch up. This is shown in Deathly Hallows Part 1 when Ron arrives back at the Burrow.
Thanks.
Deserves that. Brilliant he was. I wouldn't be standing here without him.
Really?
Why is it so a surprise?
Thanks, I hate it.
The book goes something like this. Ron tripped dazedly towards Harry and Hermione. "You're okay," he mumbled, before Hermione flew at him and hugged him tightly. I thought... "I'm all right," said Ron, patting her on the back. "I'm fine." "Ron was great," said Tonks warmly, relinquishing her hold on Lupin. "Wonderful. Stunned one of the Death Eaters, straight to the head. And when you're aiming at a moving target from a flying broom..." "You did?" said Hermione, gazing up at Ron with her arms still around his neck. "Always a tone of surprise," he said, a little grumpily, breaking free. "Are we the last back?" The difference is the way the sequence is edited, and book Ron's reaction versus film Ron's reaction. The purpose of cutting to Harry first is not clear, seeing as Harry has no reaction at this point. Placing the hug a good distance from the rest of the group makes it more romantic and less platonic. The fact that Harry doesn't run over right away adds to this. The choice to make Ron's polyjuice potion just wearing off is interesting too. It adds questions for the audience member that are unnecessary. Did she think that was Harry? Is she into Harry? We can answer these questions quickly, but the fact that they are asked at all indicates that the message of the scene didn't land. The reaction on Ron's face is what does it. He looks confused that his best friend would hug him. The expression reads more, "Ooh, a girl is hugging me," than, "My friend is hugging me because she's glad I'm not dead." Ron is more shallow in this scene. Book Ron is just tired, appreciates the hug, but is honestly not wild about it and, quote, breaks free. The common and sad trend when it comes to Ron is that Ron got dumber for comic relief, and that this was a conscious choice by the writers, directors, and producers. While this could be true to a degree, movies with a family demographic need some level of comedic relief, since film is a much more sensory, intense medium than literature.
Do you ever stop eating?
I'm hungry.
A sad byproduct of this new, dull Ron was that he was so much angrier. Jealous, less sweet, and emotionally intelligent. One scene that shows this well, I think, is one of the most brought up scenes when people discuss this topic. The scene is in chapter 15 of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, when Ron leaves Harry and Hermione after a fight with Harry. To give this scene more context about why they act as they do, after Harry, Ron, and Hermione have stolen the first Horcrux, the locket to Salazar Slytherin, from the Ministry of Magic, Hermione apparates them to a forest where she used to holiday with her family. When they arrive, we find out that Ron has been splinched. Since HP and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 was a PG-13 movie, there can't be blood. The scene is good, and they all acted it very well. In the book, it's stated that a chunk of Ron's arm is literally missing. Book Hermione is scared that if she casts spells to try and heal Ron, she might kill him. She instead uses Essence of Dittany.
Hurry quickly, in my bag. There's a bottle labeled Essence of Dittany.
Which doesn't heal wounds, it just accelerates their process. All the Dittany does in the books is age Ron's wounds several days older. This creates a lot of tension in the books because of the food shortage the trio has. The movie doesn't explain how Dittany works, and that takes away from the tension. Ron isn't getting enough nutrition to heal naturally. Coupled with the awful feelings and stress that come with having to wear the locket, this is a lot of pressure on Ron. He's festering physically and mentally. He's worried about if his family is okay and still alive, so when it comes his turn to wear the Horcrux, he breaks. A key fact we learn before Harry and Ron's fight that the movies left out is this passage. We've just learned that back at Hogwarts, Ginny, Luna, Neville have been sent into the Forbidden Forest with Hagrid. And Snape might have thought that was a punishment, said Harry, but Ginny, Neville, and Luna probably had a good laugh with Hagrid. The Forbidden Forest, they've faced plenty worse than the Forbidden Forest. Big deal. Harry is relieved by this news, which is totally in character. Harry has lucked out in the Forbidden Forest so many times, why would he think it's dangerous? Brushing this off is something that motivates Harry and Ron's fight. Ron is incredibly worried about his family. He doesn't know if they're alive. Ron is also bitter about the fact that it's been months since they were at the Ministry and they haven't made any progress on the Horcruxes. Their fight begins word for word with the book. The first change is when Harry throws in an
Well, I'm sorry, but I don't quite understand.
Mummy is exchanged for mum, reducing the burn of the comment.
You thought you'd be back with your mum by Christmas?
Ron's line, "We thought you knew what you were doing," and "We thought Dumbledore had told you what to do. We thought you had a plan," is changed instead to,
I thought you knew what you were doing. I thought Dumbledore would have told you something worthwhile.
Harry accuses Hermione as well as Ron of being skeptical that he knows what to do to find the Horcruxes. The movie removes any ire Harry had towards Hermione. Harry is only mad at Ron. Harry tells Ron to leave 3 times in the book, whereas in the movie it's only once. The films put it after Harry tackles Ron when Ron makes a comment that hurts him. This is the logical way to close this confrontation, since it's already reached violence. The awful comment Ron makes is one of the saddest changes in the Harry Potter movies. "It's all right for you two, isn't it, with your parents safely out of the way?" "My parents are dead," Harry bellowed. "And mine could be going the same way," yelled Ron. "Then go," roared Harry. The reason this change is so sad is because giving Harry's line to Ron and changing it to, "No, you don't know how this feels. Your parents are dead. You have no family," indicates to the audience that Ron doesn't think of Harry as a member of his family, which we all know isn't true. If you've read the books, you'll know that the Weasleys undoubtedly think of Harry as an unofficially adopted member. In addition to somewhat mocking Harry for being an orphan, it's really sad that movie Ron doesn't see Harry as a member of his family. And without the information that Ginny is in danger, and Harry brushing that off, Ron has no motivation to go as far as saying he doesn't think Harry's a member of his family.
The sword was stolen. Yeah, I'm still here. But you two carry on. Don't let me spoil the fun.
What's wrong?
Wrong? Nothing's wrong. Not according to you, anyway.
Look, if you've got something to say, don't be shy. Spit it out.
All right, I'll spit it out. But don't expect me to be grateful just because now there's another damn thing we've got to find.
I thought you knew what you signed up for.
Yeah, I thought I did too.
Well, I'm sorry, but I don't quite understand. What part of this isn't living up to your expectations? Did you think we were going to be staying in a five-star hotel, finding a Horcrux every other day? You thought you'd be back with your mum by Christmas?
I just thought, after all this time, we would have actually achieved something. I thought you knew what you were doing. I thought Dumbledore would have told you something worthwhile. I thought you had a plan.
I told you everything Dumbledore told me. And in case you haven't noticed, we have found a Horcrux already.
Yeah, and we're about as close to getting rid of it as we are to finding the rest of them, aren't we?
Ron, please take the Horcrux. You wouldn't be saying any of this if you hadn't been wearing it all day.
Do you know why I listen to that radio every night, dear? To make sure I don't hear Ginny's name. Or Fred. Or George. Or Mum.
What, you think I'm not listening too? You think I don't know how this feels?
No, you don't know how it feels! Your parents are dead! You have no family!
Stop! Stop!
All right, go! Go then!
Ron.
And you? Are you coming or are you staying? Fine. I get it. I saw you two the other night.
Ron, there's nothing. Ron! Ron, where are you going? Come back. Ron! Ron!
The trio's dynamic in this scene really shows the point their characterization got to. Their interactions, especially in this movie, feel more like it's Harry, Hermione, and Ron is somewhat separate. Instead, in the books, it feels like Harry is separate. Ron and Hermione are a team who must deal with and support him. This makes sense because in the books, Harry is the character the reader learns a vast majority of information through. We learn from his thoughts about what's happening. In the movies, we don't get that. In literature like Harry Potter, the main character is the portal for the reader. In film, the camera gives the audience a window to look through onto the characters. The camera frames the story.
Going somewhere?
Nobody else is going to die. Not for me.
For you? You think Mad Eye died for you? You think George took that curse for you? You may be the chosen one, mate, but this is a whole lot bigger than that. It's always been bigger than that.
Come with me.
I'll leave Hermione. You're mad. We wouldn't last 2 days without her. Don't tell her I said that. Besides, you've still got the trace on you. You've still got the wedding.
But I don't care about a wedding. I'm sorry, no matter whose it is, I have to start finding these Horcruxes. They're our only chance to beat him, and the longer we stay here, the stronger he gets.
Tonight's not the night, mate. We'll only be doing him a favour.
Chapter 3. Harry. Harry's adaptation is interesting. His transformation is more a product of the constrictions of the medium than any studio or writing decision. Film is a visual medium, so information can't be told through Harry's thoughts and feelings. This means Harry is not as rich or deep a character. Harry also is used as a blank slate to help bring the audience into the world. A flat character who any audience member can connect to and imbue with their own thoughts and feelings, and experience the story as. Harry is this blank slate. Harry's friends and acquaintances lose lines because Harry is our protagonist, and he needs awesome moments and lines because he is the main character. Hermione's moment is cut, and her moment becomes the devil's snare. By cutting this time when Hermione gets to shine, Harry gets to look more awesome. Like in The Order of the Phoenix, the scene where Voldemort battles Dumbledore is so incredibly messed up, I could give it its own video. The lines I want to focus on are Dumbledore's, "Indeed, your failure to understand that there are things much worse than death has always been your greatest weakness," is cut in favor of more battle time. In addition, Harry is given his own new line.
You're the weak one, and you'll never know love or friendship. And I feel sorry for you.
You're the one who is weak. You will never know love or friendship, and I feel sorry for you. This is added when he's possessed by Voldemort, something the movie plays up a lot, and he gets out of it alone because he loves people.
Thanks, I hate it.
In the Harry Potter films, Harry has one smart friend and one dumb friend. We know in the books that Harry has struggles. He fights a lot of anger, and he struggles to see the adults in his life as full, three-dimensional people with lives. The films can't show this because we don't get a direct connection to Harry's thoughts. Chapter 4. Why did this happen? Film and literature are very different mediums. They have very different ways they have to convey the text. A book will just lay the information out, and it's up to the reader to interpret it. How we interpret film depends entirely on how it is shown to us. In a single scene, so many pieces have to work together to convey the correct message the director wants. The lighting, the actors, the text, the framing, the effects, movement, pacing. All of these have to work in tandem to create a full story. Also, filming a movie is expensive, so any scene, no matter how great, if not important to the plot, has to go. When it comes to literature, all of those things, excluding the text, are built in the reader's mind. Book Hogwarts looks different to everyone because we create it based on our own experiences and beliefs. Even if we may not like them, there are changes made in all book-to-film adaptations that are necessary, not only to fit pacing, but to fit our cultural expectation for a movie. Since a movie is more accessible than a book, it has to be made with a wider audience in mind. This becomes an even more difficult challenge when a large portion of your audience already has deep love and knowledge of the source material. You then need to cater to people who know everything as well as to people who know nothing. Another challenge that comes with adapting a book like Harry Potter is that so many fans believe in an authorial intent. This idea that the author, in this case J.K. Rowling, imbued her books with some sort of intent and correct message, a correct way we're supposed to interpret the story. And the films bastardized that vision. In reality, Rowling was very involved in the production of the films, and they fit her authorial vision.
I think there are a lot of writers of books who are just happy to have a deal with Hollywood. You were respectful of everyone, but I think you weren't just going to sit there and let someone say something foolish. People have forgotten this. There were still people talking about, could we cast an American and stuff.
Definitely,
and,
at that point, definitely.
And I was violently against that, and you were as well. That Ron, for some reason, was the one they thought
everyone
could
thought
be
Ron should
American.
be American.
I don't know
It's
why.
easier for us to be angry on behalf of the author when we believe they all-knowingly preside over a fictional world that is individual for all of us. Fans get upset on behalf of the author when their vision has been taken away from them. Film strengths over literature, and there are some things that were arguably done better because of the power of a visual representation of Harry Potter, because we're watching and hearing a real person. Movies have so much potential in inspiring powerful emotions in people.
Hold on. Hold on. Okay. Just hold on, okay? We'll fix you. Hermione, have something in your bag. Hermione? Hermione?
The Harry Potter movies, however flawed, did do some things better than the books. When the exposition has to be given the visual elements allows it to be more enjoyable.
To be with friends. Dobby is happy to be with his friend, Harry Potter.
This is used especially well in Deathly Hallows Part 1, when the story of the Deathly Hallows has to be told. Instead of having to shoot a bunch of costly and, in the end, probably boring scenes of it being explained, it was cheaper and more effective to animate a very cool artistic representation of the story and just record a voiceover. And it works so well.
There were once 3 brothers who were traveling along a lonely, winding road at twilight. In time, the brothers reached a river too treacherous to pass. But being learned in the magical arts, the 3 brothers simply waved their wands and made a bridge.
The elements of the magical world, like Hogwarts Castle or the magic itself, are handled very tastefully. And even if they aren't what you imagined, you have to admit they're cool. The idea of having to pick 3 actors at age 11 to 12 to play your leads for 8 movies over a 10-year period is an incredible challenge.
Do you know what? It was really lucky I spoke to Emma first on the phone before I met her, because I fell absolutely in love with her. She said to me, I've only ever acted in school drama plays before, and God, oh my God, I'm so nervous, I can't believe I got the part. And then she spoke for like 60 seconds at least without drawing breath, and I just said, Emma, you're perfect.
There was, I mean, it turns out, because neither me, Rupert, and Emma could remember this, but it turns out we did all audition together once. There was a screen test
I didn't know that.
where they all tested us all at the same time. And I could hear Chris Columbus's voice off camera.
Hello, it's the German Harry. Time to leave. Be gone from the library, now. Cut! Great work, guys.
And I just remembered, God, he was brilliant. He was amazing with us.
One that achieved as well as could be asked from a project of this magnitude. Earlier I mentioned that many people will say that they made Ron a goof to make Hermione a role model for little girls. To a degree this is true, but what happened to Hermione happened for 2 major reasons. One is because she was Steve Clovis's favorite character.
Steve, Hermione is a character who you've said in the past is one of your favourites. Does that make her easier to write?
Yeah, I mean, I like writing all three, but I've always loved writing Hermione because she's a tremendous character for a lot of reasons for a writer, which also she can carry exposition in a wonderful way because you just assume she read it in a book.
Steve Kloves was the script writer of 7 of the 8 Harry Potter films, Order of the Phoenix being the one he didn't work on. The reason is that the studio and production had vested interest in Hermione being a strong role model. The latter is more problematic of the two. Part of social learning theory is the idea that one of the 3 basic models of observational learning is a symbolic model which involves real or fictional characters displaying behaviors in books, films, television programs, or online media. This is the foundation of a character role model, that we can learn from the actions of a fictional character. Now that we know this happens, it incentivizes people to write characters to be the perfect role model. As an idea, this is fine. The flaw comes when the goal of writing a role model takes precedent over the goal of writing a good character. The character stops being as believable because it feels like the decisions they make are to service an agenda, not what the character would actually do. This is the problem that Disney ran into with Rey in the new trilogy. Disney went in planning to create a strong role model for women in Star Wars. An idea a massive majority of fans did not take issue with. Why would they? There have been strong female characters in Star Wars forever. Princess Leia, or many of the characters in the extended universe. The difference between those characters and Rey was that they are well-written characters. Rey is not. Rey was written with the express intent of giving women an icon. So her choices don't feel genuine. She exists as a puppet for Disney's agenda. An agenda I support, but when a character is written to be a role model, they can't, because they don't feel real unless they're well written. Humans aren't going to observationally learn from a character whose actions don't feel real. The issue that Hermione has is that she was written to be a great role model for girls, when she already was.
Not that Hermione in the books is ever ugly, but it was quite a big deal for me that I had written, a strong female character who was primarily about brain, and that she chose to become a little more groomed and glamorous as us geeks do at a certain point in our lives. But I accepted it. Emma's a great actress, and I loved her as a person.
She's not perfect, but she gets through, and that's why we look up to her. The movies did not do a bad job. They did an unnecessary one. Book Hermione isn't a 100% perfect role model. She has holes in her skills, holes that her friends fill. The movies don't give you the feeling that Hermione needs her friends just as much as they need her. Movie Hermione is so capable, it almost doesn't make sense why she would hang out with these boys. Since we can learn from fictional characters, the idea of crafting a role model without flaws is flawed. What is gained by making someone aspire to something no human can get? The magic of the books was that the trio was not perfect, but because of their friendship together, they could make it work. The trio was the role model. Isn't it a flawed idea to show children characters who subscribe to the philosophy that being strong means not needing anyone's help? Book Hermione showed that it was okay to be a brainiac, not especially socially skilled and not conventionally attractive, but still deserve, receive, and give love. Nothing against Emma Watson, who played the part very well, but she's stunning.
I met her and she was this very beautiful, which she still is, of course, beautiful girl. I just kind of had to go, okay, it's film, deal with it. I'm going to still see my gawky, geeky, ugly duckling Hermione in my mind, but...
One of the things that defined Hermione was that she didn't fit the box of attractiveness. she was still enough. If there's one question we should ask ourselves, it's what do the changes in characterization say about the culture it was changed for? As Timothy Corrigan, professor of English and Cinema Studies at the University of Pennsylvania, writes, writing about film can serve several functions, ranging from better understanding your own response to a movie, comparing and contrasting one movie to others as a way of understanding them better, and making connections between a movie and other areas of the culture to illuminate both the culture and the movies it produces. Film, like contemporary literature, represents the most artistically resourceful use of a given language, in this case an audio-visual language. Great films are the modern vernacular equivalent of the ancient classics, embodiment of the human capacity to imagine and create in a commonly understood language. As of 2018, Harry Potter was the third highest grossing film franchise of all time. The 8 films made over $7.7 billion in the worldwide box office, higher than all 22 installments of James Bond. As film critic and video
Because
essayist
movies, especially
Lindsay Ellis
really
says,
popular movies that a lot of people see, illuminate the dreams, desires, and values of a culture. And if Transformers is one of the most lucrative film franchises of this generation, what that means merits discussion.
if you switch Transformers for Harry Potter, it's saying that no matter how much these movies are complained about, what was changed worked for a massive number of people. And like it or not, that says something about our culture. That we not only accept, but expect a female role model who's defined by being completely together and waiting for the men in her life to figure it out. When that's not what a female role model should be, someone who owns who they are, despite the circumstances, even if they're not perfect. This is why Harry Potter is my favorite book series, and Hermione is my favorite character. Book Hermione does that as she grows up. She doesn't change who she is, and she's not good at everything, so her friends are there for her. Harry headed straight to the Gryffindor common room, where he found Ron and Hermione playing chess. Chess was the only thing Hermione ever lost at, something Harry and Ron thought was very good for her. But she doesn't need to be good at everything to be herself. As easy as it is to get annoyed at how my favorite books were adapted, it's hard to argue that these movies are anything short of a cinematic masterpiece. And the ability to pull off a project of this scale as well as was done deserves respect. So before we start pointing fingers at the ever-present they, who ruined the thing that we love, remember that this was not a project created with malice. These were people who loved these stories enough to dedicate their careers to adapting them as best they could, and they truly believed in them.
We had started to somewhat diverge, because we had to, a little bit from the text with Azkaban.
Yeah.
And what Goblet became was the moment where we said there is now really a movie tale and there is a book tale. The narratives are definitely reflective of one another, but they are slightly different. And so that's really what happened in Goblet.
Yeah.
It's a movie, actually. I know a lot of people, it's their favorite. And I've had that over the years, that a lot of people come up and like that movie in particular. I think it's because much of what the sort of sensibility Mike brought to it. The interesting thing about Mike Newell is he was English. So he sort of, without even trying, I think got the school thing. I think you feel that. I mean, you totally feel that in the movie.
Mike nailed the Yule Ball so perfectly.
I've been told that a few times.
I love that. That's one of the highlights of the series for me, is the ball scene. I couldn't improve it on it in any way, shape or form. Visually it was perfection. The performances are stunning. It's pacey, because that could have brought all of the action to a halt, couldn't it? It could.
Absolutely.
Pace is such a problem with the films, I know, because in the book I frequently gather my characters together and they all sit down and have a conversation for 3 hours. You don't do that so much.
Well, you also do this thing which used to drive me truly insane, which is that a chapter would end And then the next chapter would begin, over the next 3 months, not much happened to Harry. I'm like, wait a minute, but now it's winter, or now it's spring. And I'm like...
Oh, do a montage, come on.
I feel very privileged to have played Hermione, says Watson. I think she's someone young girls can look up to because she's always true to herself. She's very smart and an incredibly courageous and loyal friend who keeps a cool head in extremely difficult situations. It was wonderful to be able to bring across those elements of her personality through the films. That's a quote from Emma Watson in an interview about Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. If you love the books but did not enjoy the films, that's fine. But before you start crucifying the people who do, and the people who created them, consider, as Melinda Gates writes, every society says its outsiders are the problem. But the outsiders are not the problem. The urge to create outsiders is the problem. Can you be a conservative without damning the liberals? Can you be a Christian without shunning those who aren't? Can you be a Harry Potter fan without hating the movies and excluding those who love them? We have to be careful about what we love, of course, but we also have to be careful about how we love it. John Green.